morning and welcome to our daily Lent devotion. Today we're in Matthew chapter 19 and 20. And in this passage, Jesus is just full of surprises. So this is a section in Matthew's Gospel that records the teaching of Jesus. And time again, he's just turning things on their head. He's, if you like, showing the upside down nature of the kingdom of God. And this is epitomized in the parable that he gives at the beginning of Matthew 20. It's a parable that can leave us confused. It just seems unfair to us that those who have worked all day, in the heat of the day, would receive the same amount as those who've just worked 1 hour at the end of the day. And so what are we to make of this? What was Jesus saying through this? Well, I think the key comes, if you like, the key to unlocking this parable comes at the end of chapter 19. One of the things that happens in chapter 19 is you have recorded the account of the rich young ruler who walks away from Jesus. He wasn't prepared to leave behind his wealth to follow Jesus. Now, as he's walking away, Peter, one of Jesus' disciples, seems to put 2 and 2 together. He seems to think, just a minute, this guy's walking away from you, Jesus. He's not willing to leave everything behind. But we have. And therefore, what will there be for us? What reward will we get? Now, Jesus answers Peter by saying, yes, Peter, the renewal of all things. Anybody who's made such sacrifices will be rewarded. But then, as things were probably sounding really good for Peter, Jesus adds this irritating little statement. He says, but many who are first will be last, and many who are last will be first. Now, we know that the parable flows from this because that same statement comes at the end of the parable. And through this parable, I believe that Jesus is saying to Peter and to us that we need to realize that God is no man's debtor, that whoever we are, however much we've done for God, we are totally reliant on grace. Everything that we've received, everything that we've been able to do for God even, is because of his grace. You see, each day labourer, whether they've worked the whole day or whether they worked just the last part of the day, was totally reliant on the landowner to come and hire them. Day labourers were they were the poorest, able-bodied people around in that day. They needed a landowner to hire them, or they'd be left in poverty. The landowner agreed a fair price with those that he hired first. It was a good day's wage, a denarius. But then he keeps going back to the marketplace. Now, why does he keep going back, even at the end of the day? Had he miscalculated how many workers he needed? Well, I don't think so. I think it was his grace, his love, that meant he kept going back. And he has compassion on those who are still waiting in the marketplace, and he's generous to them, giving them a full day's wage because he knows that that's what they need. But when the first workers saw how generous he'd been, they were indignant that he would give the same amount to those who'd worked for 1 hour. But the landowner reminds them, no, I've been fair to you. We agreed a fair price and I've been fair to you. And then he says, are you envious because I am generous? And then we have that phrase, so the last will be first and the first will be last. So what is Jesus saying to Peter? Well, I think he's saying, yes, Peter, you'll be rewarded, but your mindset needs to change. You don't have a kingdom mindset. You are seeing God as your debtor. And you are seeking rewards, but in reality you're bankrupt of grace. Jesus is showing us that the kingdom is not about the length of your service. It's not about how much you've achieved for God, but it's all about grace. And this parable, I think, is warning us that if we don't live in the light of his grace, then 2 things can happen. Firstly, we become ungrateful towards God. We become ungrateful towards the one who's given us every breath that we breathe. But then secondly, we become envious towards others because we see ourselves as perhaps deserving more. But seeing God's grace, seeing how much reliant we were on grace, demolishes all of that, and it enables us to embrace and show grace to others. And so today, can I encourage us, let's remember his grace. Let's live in the light of his grace. Let's have a gratitude because of his grace that then overflows into our relationships with those around us. Have a great day.